Thank you very much. Sorry. I was saying that I will introduce a little bit Skillman network that is bringing here two of the most outstanding examples on our engagement in digitalization of COVES, and then I will make two questions to them to facilitate the discussion. Skillman Network has a vision that is nearly 20 years, I think, ago. The Copenhagen Declaration was getting the problem to make a stronger collaboration, to have a strong collaboration among TVET centers and companies. And starting from this idea, we have developed the network. Now the network, Skillman Network, that has an active collaboration with your network, and we are very happy and proud and thankful for this. The network covers around 90 countries and collect more than 600 members. We are working now on skill anticipation exercise at focusing the regional dimension. And the network is very well engaged in giving an ethical impact to education and to learning, considering as one of the most relevant aspects to discuss about ethical skills when you talk about the curricula design and revision. One important aspect is that Skillman, I didn't say in the beginning, is the worldwide network for skills in advanced manufacturing. That is not anything concerning to gender discrimination. Our name refers to manufacturing sector, and we are working now in growing up our sub-network of Global COVES, the initiative that we bring on to help our members to improve in the direction of excellence. And to make it, we have a self-assessment tool. We are working together to exchange information with the EN network. And now I would like to introduce the aspect that our members have developed, starting from one of the two most important concepts that we think are relevant for COVES to face the transition to digital. In February this year, the Commission has proposed a new European partnership for investment. So this is the framework that I would like to focus. There will be a new engagement in investing for this transition toward green, climate neutral and digital Europe in general. So our VET centers, our COVES are engaged in this transition. And the final idea is to have, I think, an European industry that is more competitive and resilient. Okay, we want to change it, but how we can improve in digital? And there will be this investment. But our COVES have already started or are engaged in this progress. In fact, we have here an example of from Reggio Emilia of one of our members that has developed a regional digital district in Reggio Emilia. We have this outstanding example, I think, and we have also here from Spain the CEO of Nebulous System, Professor Luis de la Torre, that he's also an example of what could be necessary to implement this transition for COVES in terms of remote laboratories that they implement. So in this framework, I would like to make the first question to Professor Luis de la Torre, that has I think is the inventor of this technology that he diffuses. And I would like to ask to Luis what are the investment that the COVES needs to implement, or what are the solutions that you think necessary and that you provide to allow the use of shared laboratories and so remote laboratories. Please, Luis.
Yes, thank you, Giovanni, for the introduction. So, in order to answer that question, of course, let me first explain very briefly how our solution works. So we can understand the full list of requirements and the infrastructure any institution would need to make this a reality. So our solution basically consists on two parts. The first part is a software that needs to be installed in the lab computers where the equipment that you want to make remotely operable is located. And the second part of our solution, the core of this solution, is an IoT platform which is hosted in the cloud. And with these two things, the lab equipment gets published in the cloud platform, where you can manage it, and it is also made available as web services for your students, researchers, and so on. So this is the first investment that would be needed by an institution. Okay. Purchasing the software and an annual license for using the cloud IoT platform I just mentioned. There is, of course, a second part to this, which is the lab equipment itself that you want to operate remotely, right? So we can divide these in two categories. First, the general things that are commonly needed by any lab to enable remote operation of the equipment, and second, the specific things that are needed depending on the domain, the knowledge domain, and the experiments and the particular lab setups that you have in your laboratory. So in the first category, these general things, these common things that you would require, there are three important things. First, the computers, of course, whether they run on Linux or on Windows or whatever, you need the computers to install our software and to use them as an interface with the lab equipment. Of course, fortunately, most labs already are well supplied with computers. Second, you need the web cameras, so students get and researchers get video feedback from what's going on the laboratory when they operate the equipment. These cameras can be added to the cloud IoT platform and be assigned to the different lab equipment. And finally, you need smart power strips or power distribution units. And this is important because you do not want to have your equipment power on or power all the time. Instead, what you want is devices to be power on when a user connects to the lab and power off when the user disconnects. So regardless he or she forgets to press the switch off button, the devices will power off when the user disconnects and stop using the lab equipment. That's most of the part for the first category, for the common things. And then in the second category, the things depends on the particular lab setups that you have, of course. So it is impossible to give a list or a budget for this. However, the basic requirement here is that the lab needs to be fully operable from a computer without any manual interaction. It has to be digitized, so to speak. So to put a very short example, and I'm finishing with this, let's think on a tank in which you need to control the water level in the tank. This is a common experience in control engineering. So in this system, you basically have three main elements apart or aside from the tank itself, which are two valves that control the input flow to the tank and the output flow of the tank, and another one, and the third element, which is a sensor to measure the level of the water in the tank. So if you have manual valves and you need to turn the valves to open and close them manually, this is not going to work. Of course, you will need to replace these manual valves with electro valves that you can operate electronically. And the same goes with the sensor. If you have an analog sensor, this is not working, but you need to replace it with a digital sensor. So without considering this last aspect, the investment required for a lab to be fully operable remotely can be around 4,000 to 6,000 euros, more or less.
Thank you very much, Filippo. we were waiting for the end. Luis de la Torre, thank you very much. Now, I would like to move to Reggio Emilia, where we have already an investment, a relevant investment to implement this transition to digital. We have the digital district, and Dr. Filippo Di Gregorio, I would like to ask to you when and how you realized this initiative and what it represents in terms of investments and targets that you have given to your territory.
Thanks, Giovanni. Confindustria is the main association representing manufacturing and service companies in Italy. And in Reggio Emilia in particular, we represent more than 1,000 companies and more than 50,000 people. Our digital district project strategy was developed between the end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019 by a number of entrepreneurs of Reggio Emilia that worked together in focus group in order to redesign the strategy of the company, in particular with the aim, with the vision to support local companies, small, medium enterprises through digital transformation. So Digital District is a strategic project, and we would like to provide advanced services designed to help businesses and to help companies in the transformation connected with Industry 4.0. It has its roots in the white paper, which sets out the goal to give concrete form to the guidelines on territory, innovation, and education, structured around 5 new macro projects, and I think that we will talk about them later. We have already started. So we have designed and planned the digital district, as I said before, at the beginning of 2019, and we have already started with the first project at the end of 2019 and during the 2020, even if we were in the pandemic emergency. And so we started with educational consultancy with Robolab, that is a very particular project. We started also with the Human and Technology Training Center, that is a training center to develop that would like to develop Industry 4.0 skills and competencies, and we have already started an open accelerator. And as you said before, the investment is important. We are talking about 100,000 euros, but we would like also to invest again in the future. For sure, we cannot do this by ourselves, so we establish partnership with training center like CIS, that is the training center of our association here in Reggio Emilia, with the municipality of Reggio Emilia, with Emilia-Romagna region, and with some private technical partner. And in this moment, this digital district is widespread in the Reggio Emilia territory, but our aim is to bring all these projects in Innovation Park in Reggio Emilia. And so the future investment will be an investment of millions of euros, because we started from content, but now we have to build also a beautiful box to host all our projects. So we are going on with the digital district project.
Thank you very much, Filippo. I'm very well impressed every time that I hear your history about your commitment, the regional commitment that you have created, and the capacity and investment that you have done. This is very important. So the conclusion is that we need to have the solutions, and we also need to make relevant investment, engage stakeholders, and I think that this is an outstanding example of COVES that represent a vision for the future, to emerge stronger from the pandemic and to lead the way towards. I would like to know little bit more, Filippo, about your initiative. What are more in detail the specific domains that your digital district can offer to your industry?
Yeah, so we would like to help our company through the digital innovation, and we are also focused on technology transfer, on upskilling and reskilling, on pre-professional advice, on training, on curriculum counseling. So we have developed 5 macro projects. The first is RoboLab, an experimental educational robotic laboratory providing vocational guidance to students from primary through to secondary school, whose goal is to promote the development of technical and digital skills. The second is the Human and Technology Training Center, so an innovative training environment consisting of laboratories equipped with advanced technologies designed to develop specialistic skills on digital transformation. The third macro project that we have already developed is the Open Accelerator. So is a place which we support innovative startups and entrepreneurship by promoting open innovation and acceleration action. And these 3 macro projects are already done, and we are already working with students, with trainee, and with startups. Then we will develop on July 2021 the Digital Automation Lab, a technology application laboratory for advanced manufacturing, digitally integrated and connected for process innovation and technology transfer. And we are also working with our university, the University of Modena Reggio Emilia, to develop some new degrees. So we are fostering partnership between the business world and academia, collaborating in the creation of new university courses centered on distinctive character of digital disciplines. So we are working to put together different partnerships, public, private, and to use technologies such as computer or simulator or robots or CNC machining, 3D printing, 3D scanners, and all this stuff to help people and to help companies through the digital transformation, digital revolution that we are facing.
Thank you very much to the regional digital district of Reggio Emilia. And last question for Professor Luis de la Torre. I would like to ask you, what are the specific domain, Luis, where your laboratories are currently used, implemented, and what other domains you can offer?
So currently, it has been applied mostly in control engineering or process control engineering in general, and electrical engineering, and also on several domains on physics. But actually, our solutions are quite wide or open, if you want, and they include, of course, also addressing key digital technologies and electronics for sure. Actually, this is a very natural field in which our solutions can be applied, as you know, the typical training systems used in these domains are usually already digitized. So if we go back to the last requirement I mentioned in my previous answer, the one about having training systems or experimental lab setups that can be completely operated through a computer, then you realize that in most cases, probably this requirement is already checked. So, and the same can be said, of course, to other specific domains, such as the one I mentioned of control engineering and so on. But our solutions are not limited only to this domain, of course, and we usually announce our system to address STEM experimentation in general, equally valid for, you know, science, technology, engineering, and even mathematics. And this may sound a little bit more strange to mention mathematics here, but it is also a possibility, because nowadays, you know, software such as Mathematica, which some of you may already have heard about, is used a lot on mathematics studies and research. But of course, this software has a commercial license, and you usually get your students to the lab and use the software in the lab where the license is installed. But with our system, you could provide remote access to those computers. So that's also another solution.
Thank you very much, Luis. We are end time, so I have to give back the microphone to Filippo Del Nino for short conclusion. I would like to remember that two examples of Skillman Coves and the engagement that they have in digitalization is coming sided to one general concept that excellence must be for all and not for elites. So Filippo, please, the microphone is yours.
Thank you very much, Giovanni, and a great thanks to Luis and Filippo for their very valuable input to our discussion. I have very few final considerations for the ENE network. It's clear that the topic of digitalization is on top of the agendas of all governments and all the other stakeholders in the education sector. It's also clear there are many developments and experimentation at national level, at regional or local level, at the level of individual center of excellence. For this reason, we think that this area of work is one where networks and partnerships are particularly important and can be very effective for sharing knowledge and experiences. And that's also why the reason why ENE will continue working in this area of work for 2021 and probably even further. I would like now to pass the word to Manuel for the facilitation of the next session. I would like to thank you very much again, all our guests.
A very good introduction, actually. I will try to briefly go through actually our presentation. As I said, and as Manuel introduced before, in December, we simply presented the launching of this study. And now that is finally being concluded, we can actually present to you some of the findings. As you see, the main objective was to analyze how autonomy in Center of Excellence is operationalized and how it can be linked to PPP. As mentioned before, 2 were the member states from the European Union and 6 from the ETF partner country. And our research has been based on desk research, online survey, and interviews. We actually got the opportunity to involve not only practitioners, but also policy makers. You can see that we map autonomy at 3 different levels. And the cover reviewed in the study had similar features and patterns of cooperation with the private sector. This was quite interesting because it happened despite the fact that they have a different country context and different legislation and a historical background in terms of vocational education and training. Next slide, please. So one of the key findings of the study was that COVE can mostly decide autonomously on the level and form of public-private cooperation. In fact, a high number of PPP was seen as a specific feature that distinguished a COVE from other VET providers. COVE also tend to be more accountable and operate more like a private company in their daily management. As you can see, benefits that COVE receive from public-private cooperation are also related to innovation. And it seems to be quite a margin of flexibility in this term in supporting research and development with private sectors and university. Next slide, please. Thank you. So from the table, you can see that there is a good level of satisfaction with autonomy and the COVE has. And the studied COVE portray a number of cooperation modes, so different modes with company to support student skills development. And here we touch upon work-based learning, including planning, and also including assessment for and as learning. The last box on the right side shows you the different driving forces behind COVEs. For instance, resources from the government and eventually even international donors. The need raising from industry, SMEs, and sector networks. And this takes me actually to the 2 last slides, which are questions that raised after this baseline study. And then I would like to share them with you this morning as food for thoughts for the follow-up. So next slide, please. And there we go. So we just mentioned that the study reviews similar partners despite different country contexts. So is there a common or differentiated approach in future ENE partnerships in terms of autonomy and PPP? And how could we increase private and international funding into COVEs? Next slide, please. So some of the countries that were involved in the studies actually managed to implement PPP without legislation. The question is there a policy trend or a policy gap? And overall, PPP is a factor linked to COVE's autonomy success. So how to further discuss this to support excellence development at system level? Those are just fruitful thoughts. So if you're interested in this specific topic, as Manuel was anticipating, in fact, we are planning along the year also, and is in the pipeline to have a workshop in which we actually promote a more in-depth discussion. So just let us know through our network email address. And now I kindly ask to launch our recorded double interview with two center representatives who took place in this study. I would like to thank you all. This is all from my side, so we can go ahead with the video. Thank you.
Thank you, Floriana.
Okay, so here we are for a double interview. You both ready? Your first name and name of your center.
Mervi, Omnia Education Partnerships.
Najib from EZIT, the Gazier School of Textile and the Garment Industry.
Your country.
Finland.
Morocco.
In which sector do you mainly provide training?
We train actually in multiple sectors, ranging from business, tourism, health, textile, carpentry, construction, to various technical fields, management, and entrepreneurship.
We specialize in textile and garment industry, and besides other qualifications such as merchandising, distribution, safety at work, hygiene, and all the vocations related to supply chain management.
How do you develop autonomy practices and link them with PPP in Finland?
Well, in Finland, vet centers actually have a very high degree of autonomy, which ranges from management of the vet centers, pedagogy and pedagogical practices, to private sector partnerships. For instance, Omnia has over 3,000 partners in the region. Recently, Espoo has become a forerunner in smart solutions in Finland and also sustainability. So the partnerships have now taken the form of, for instance, an AI innovation project and supporting companies, small and medium-sized enterprises in reaching the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So partnerships here have to be very much about win-win solutions. Typically, we blend in innovation, the use of new technology, but of course also workforce development on all sides is important. And when we look at the vet student side of the coin, it's very much about work-based learning and good work-based learning practices. So training future professionals.
How does it work then in Morocco? How do you develop autonomy practices and link them with PPP?
In Morocco, the vocational education ecosystem is influenced by the institutional paradigm that we have. So we have on one side the Ministry of Vocational Education, who is in charge of, let's say, regulating the market, laws, bylaws, regulations, standards, etc. And on the other side, we have the Moroccan Agency for Vocational Education, which is in charge of, let's say, of executing the vocational education policy of the country. This question of implementing autonomy is not an old practice in Morocco. Maybe you can trace it back to 1996 with the foundation of our school. And that was the first example of a successful public-private partnerships in the fields of vocational education. How do we implement it? It's sometimes it's a matter of the output of the negotiations between the public authorities in charge of vocational education and also the agency in charge of implementing this policy. And this discussion with the professional associations, sometimes it comes out with a model, then we go to another sector with another professional association, then we have a new model. So we can say that in this respect that we don't really have a one-size-fits-all model for all, but some models, some of them are really successful ones.
And now we challenge our speakers with two different questions. How the Finnish vet system support quality and relevance of vets through partnerships with private sector?
Well, first of all, if we think about quality and relevance, for us, it's about anticipation. So about the real needs and what's happening in the society and in the industries as well. So our qualifications are designed and updated based on basically anticipation activities and input from the industry. And they're also, of course, updated on basically or regularly, and it's a joint activity very much. So we want to see that the qualifications are up to date. So that's one thing about quality and relevance that is very important for us. The qualifications are also modular and the assessment is competency based. So modules are quite possible and enable also tailoring to private sector needs, and that's done quite frequently. So on a national level, the module has learning outcomes, but then the local industry and the local partners are very much taken into consideration in implementing the modules. And of course, the teaching staff has ongoing contacts with companies through work-based learning practices, because actually student assessment is a joint effort and it's a part of the work-based learning process. So again, we get direct feedback from the industry and from companies, our partners, about the relevancy of what the students have learned and the quality of teaching, i.e. how well the students perform in the work-based learning practices. And basically, if we look at the overall picture, quality and relevance are what makes Finnish VET quite well known and popular even in Finland. So it's something that we're very proud of. Of course, it takes effort to keep it up to date, but for us, it's the only way that VET will actually be a part of solving problems for the future.
In Morocco, what is the impact at national level of such a practice?
This practice has to some sense revolutionized the system of vocational education in Morocco. So we started experimenting and sometimes getting inspiration from other partner countries. And then we discovered that it is to the extent of the involvement of industrialists, the private sector, that I mentioned here, the level of the involvement in the governance and also the management of vocational education centers. It has led to better quality, and it has also led to a faster integration to the job market of the students of vocational education centers. And the discussion still goes on. I mean, each now and then we try to improve these public-private partnerships through, if you like, adding some sophistications in terms of governance, and also in terms of getting the perfect match between the role of the state, which is more of the time providing funding, providing centers, purchasing machinery, etc., and the role of the industrials, which is giving us a hands-on information about the latest trends in the job market, the latest trends in technology needs, and also their needs. And we have some very successful experiences and some success stories in this sense. For example, in one sector, which I can't mention here, they were able, the board, which is made mainly from the industry, the board was able not only to answer the needs of a foreign investor, but they were able to train stagiaires, the students, 8 months before the implementation of the factory. So, I mean, the impact on the country is paramount and very positive, where you have a huge recruiter, a huge industrialist having on the opposite side people who understand the industry and people who understand vocational education.
In 1 minute, how do you see the way forward?
If we look at the situation today, we live pretty much in a global village, for the better and for the worse. So Still, if we look at VET, we're very much looking at it from a local perspective and what is happening locally. I think we need to broaden our views on partnerships, and we need to look at international possibilities for sectoral and industry partnerships. So why not look at it with the aspect of skills without borders? Why not look at competence passports? Why not look at real partnerships that reach quite far and cover multiple sectors? Because we don't just develop things locally. We really have to work more together on an international level and from a point of view.
Well, from my view, from my perspective here in a North African country, I think the way forward is to try to standardize these public-private partnerships in the fields of vocational education, in the sense that we can have a model which is to some extent suitable for all and which can guarantee a match between accountability, the accountability of the governance model, and also the autonomy of the vocational education centers. And this is a way for us to go quickly because the labor market changes. Maybe half of the jobs that we have and occupations we have now will disappear in the next 5, 10, or 20 years. That's why we need really a very engaged and also sophisticated model for this public-private partnership.
And now say something nice about the ETF Network of Excellence.
Well, for me, this is a great example of what skills and competency without borders can be, learning from each other. I mean, public sector vets, policy and development must be in sync with private sector needs. They cannot reside in different time zones. So what a better way to promote this type of activity than the ENE network?
ETF Network of Excellence comes, I think, at the right time, in a time where the labor market is witnessing huge upheavals, digitization, automatization, etc. And what a golden opportunity to be able to speak to other partners and exchange and learn from each other. And this is an opportunity that our center is going to say, I can assure you, and I can assure you of our engagement and involvement in this network.
Well, what an inspiring and interesting conversation. I want to thank you very much, both of you, Najib and Mervi. Thanks a lot. It was really interesting.
Thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. It was nice. Mervi, you were a star, Mervi. I'm very happy to have met you.